Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shelly and today I'm going to be doing a tag video. Now, for the whole month of March or for many videos in March, I'm trying to shout out channels that I love and support and that I want you all to love and support as well. Of course, if they pique your interest. So the first person that I want to shout out is the creator of this tag, and that is AJ Dunn of AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. AJ reads a lot of thrillers and a lot of mysteries, mostly thrillers. But where AJ and where we intersect on our reading tastes is with coming of age stories. They really have some wonderful taste in coming of age stories. And I tend to agree with their estimations of most coming of age stories, buildings, romance. How many times can I say coming of age stories in a video? So anyways, if you're interested in some relaxing and wonderful, thoughtful reviews and wonderful videos, AJ is a great person to check out. The second person I want to shout out is Jack from Spread Book Joy. Jack and I have a plan coming up. We have an announcement, a readathon, perhaps? Jack is absolutely wonderful. She is thoughtful and chatty and sweet and reads eclectically and loves children's literature like I do. She has a huge soft spot for middle grade books and for picture books. So if you are wanting someone who can just talk the heck out of a book in the best way possible, who is sweet and thoughtful and just a kind soul, Jack from Spread Book Joy is your gal. What are we doing today? Today we are doing the Canterbury Tales book tag, which was created by AJ of AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, who I already just spoke about. And there are originally 26 prompts, but I'm going to answer 15 of them because I'm going to be recommending books that are middle grade recommendations in honor of Middle Grade March, which is going on all this month. My computer is over here, so I'm going to be looking at that, and let's just jump right in. The host is the character who relates tales to the reader. He is large, loud, and merry. Recommend a Mammoth over 800 pages for Middle Grade March, for March of the Mammoths. Another event going on here on BookTube is March of the Mammoths, where we try and pick up a book that is 800 pages or more. When it comes to middle grade novels, I don't know of many that are more than 800 pages, but I will recommend the longest middle grade book I believe I've read, which is The Invention of Hugo Cabaret. This is by Brian Selznick, who is an author and illustrator. And what I love about this book is that it is quite the mystery. It is the mystery of a young boy who's living kind of a runaway life, and he stumbles upon this machine. And he is trying to figure out how this machine works and what that has to do with his father. But what I love about this book is that it is the perfect symmetry, the perfect coming together, not symmetry, the perfect coming together of beautiful illustrations in order to help push a narrative forward in the age level of middle grade, which I don't see very often. The illustrations are definitely part of the story and tell a piece of the story that is really, really beautiful and really fun. Oh, before we go any further, one of the questions that people have been answering is, have you read the Canterbury Tales? I have. So I'm really glad that I can tick that one off, and I have read the Canterbury Tales. Anyways, prompt 2, or what I'm calling prompt 2, is The Knight stands for fighting, war, and bravery. Recommend a book with a courageous main character. I'm thinking about in terms of fighting and bravery, and that would be Brian from Hatchet by Gary Paulson, who, through a series of events, Brian finds himself alone and needing to survive. And so when I think about fighting and bravery, there are moments that he has to kind of pull himself together to survive, and there are times where he has to fight off the elements in order to survive as well. A great read. The Wife of Bath stands for marriage, sex, and arguing. Tell us about a book that stands for a strong female character. And I'm gonna have to say Desi Malone of The Mighty Miss Malone by Christopher Paul Curtis. This is a novel set during the Great Depression in the United States, so in the 1930s. And Dessa Malone is really trying to survive the Great Depression with her family. And you watch them struggle, you watch her spunk and her opinions and getting herself into trouble. It is just a really sweet, fantastic, wonderful, and charming book by a fantastic historical fiction middle grade author, Christopher Paul Curtis. I really cannot recommend this highly enough. The Miller is bold, blasphemous, and overturns conventions. Who is your favorite naughty character? I immediately thought of Sam from My Side of the Mountain by, Jean Craighead George. That name always messes me up. So the reason why I think of Sam as naughty is because he is living in an overstuffed, overcrowded apartment with his parents and siblings, and one day he decides to just walk off into the wilderness, into the Catskill Mountains in New York, and decides to try and live on his own in the mountains. And it's about his experience. I think of that as quite naughty because if any of my children walked off, I would be a worried wreck. Let's just say that for sure. The Plowman is good-hearted and faithful. What book do you read over and over again? When I was a child, it was definitely Matilda by Roald Dahl. This is a copy from my mom. This isn't the one that I read as a child, but this is actually an answer for the naughty character as well, because Matilda is very mischievous and she definitely pulls some pranks from up her sleeve, and she plays them on, adults and other people throughout the novel. So she is quite naughty, but when I was a child, I read this over and over again. I was enamored by Matilda's small, her petite stature, which I was very petite growing up, and her love for books and her love for others and her sweet relationship with Miss Honey. Just a fantastic, magical, and spunky novel. It's a novel with a lot of spunk. The monk cares little for the rule of work and prayer. Tell us about an unconventional character. I am going to tell you in regards to somebody who maybe is not human, and that would be Black Beauty by Anne Sewell. This is a Victorian novel told from the perspective of the horse, Black Beauty. And it is all about the message of how to treat an animal, how to treat a pet, and specifically all of the good and really heartbreaking things that happen to horses during the time when they were used for transportation, among other things. A really wonderful character and really inventive to have a story told from the perspective of a horse. The Parson is poor but rich in thought and deeds. Tell us about a book that gave you more than you expected. That would be The Miraculous Adventure of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo. I don't have Kate DiCamillo's book, The Miraculous Adventure of Edward Tulane. I instead have her book, The Tale of Despero, but it's by the same author. I didn't expect to be touched by the character of a porcelain bunny, which is what Edward Tulane is. He is a smug, snobby, sort of righteous porcelain toy. And he goes on this adventure where he finds out the depth and meaning of life, essentially. And I found this story incredibly touching. It's one that I've recommended to many people, and my copy I gave to my nephews. I liked it that much. The Squire stands for youth, beauty, and courting. What book did you fall in love with when you were a youth? Again, that would probably go to Matilda by Roald Dahl, something that I read a little bit later, a little outside of my youth, but I did really fall in love with, and that is Natalie Babbitt's The Tuck Everlasting, which is about the spring of youth, that watering spring where if you drink it, you will live forever. And it is about a family who did that. And the consequences of a life where you just continue to be the same age forevermore. And it's a story about friendship and young love and misjudgment. I just loved this story. It was touching. The movie is also really, really, really beautiful. So, The Merchant deals with furs and cloth and is powerful and wealthy. Recommend a book with a powerful message or theme. That book, that I recommended this at the beginning of middle grade March, and a couple of people said they wanted to read it, but I cannot speak highly enough of Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This book was recommended to me by a 7th grader that I was teaching at the time, And then I put off reading the book for about 5 years, maybe a little bit more than that. When I finally got around to reading it, I bawled my eyes out. I left with a feeling of hope and the idea that I wanted to do better in the world. It is about it is about a young boy named Augie who was born with a lot of facial differences, where his face doesn't look like others, and it's very apparent. And it is about Augie's story starting middle school, and it's his first time being exposed to other students in a large body, because he had been homeschooled up until middle school. And so it's his journey of friendship and feeling different and navigating the life of a middle schooler. Beautiful, beautiful book, and just sweet all around. I really, really love this book. The Shipman is a wine-stealing rascal. Tell us about a side character who steals the spotlight. Where's it at? Okay, so that would go to Jamie from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankenwheeler. Mrs. Basil E. Frankenwheeler. So the main character is Claudia, who wants to teach her parents a lesson for not appreciating her, and she decides to run away, and she hides out in a museum with her little brother. The reason why I thought her little brother Jamie stole the spotlight was because he had all of the quips, all of the jokes, and I just thought he was funny. And he was the one that, when I look back and think back on this book, I think about his character versus Claudia, our actual main character. The Guildsmen are 5 men who act as a unit and stand for brotherhood or sisterhood. Recommend a book with a strong ensemble cast of characters. That would be The Borrowers by Mary Norton. The Borrowers was actually produced as a film about little people in a house and how they borrow small things throughout the house in order to live as little people. Very magical. There was also a remake of it called The Secret Life of Arrietty, which is also the basic story of The Borrowers by Mary Norton. I love this because it feels like every person is very integral to the story. There aren't any superfluous people or characters. And so, you know, from top to bottom, the family borrowers, which I can't remember all of them now. I think Arrietty is the name of one of the borrowers. But the little family with the mother who's so worried and the father who's quite brave and the young girl who wants to live a life that's more adventurous than the one that she has. It was a really tight and well-written story with just a fantastic and memorable cast of characters. The Cook Makes the Food That Feeds You. Tell us about a book that feeds your soul. And that would be The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I adore this book. I really need to buy myself a copy. It is about a little prince that goes on an adventure. It is very magical. It is all about loss and friendship and understanding what it means to grow up. And there's just something that is so magical about that book. There is something just so sweet about that book. I love that book from the depths of my heart, And it's just one of those that almost like words cannot quite describe why I love the book so much. I must reread it and then actually form an opinion about why the book is so good. But right now I can just say that The Little Prince is amazing. Okay, the second nun talks about a saint's life in her tale. What book do you praise often? I have praised Wonder quite often. I recently read Out of the Dust, and I talked about this very, very highly, though I haven't praised it very often, but it was really, really good. Karen Hess's Out of the Dust. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Maxey was very, very sweet. I don't praise this enough, but I should. This is turning into books I don't praise enough, but should. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Okay, The Nun's Priest is witty and doesn't take himself too seriously. Recommend a book that is funny or witty, or has a witty main character. I'm gonna say Anne of Green Gables. Oh my gosh, Anne of Green Gables was so funny. I actually gave my copy away. A new one is coming to me. But what a beautiful story. It is about a young orphan girl who gets adopted by a brother and sister that are a little bit older in life, and they take her to live on Prince Edward Island. And it is all about Anne's growing pains as a young gal and her missteps and just trying to fit in and just feeling the big feelings of a young, growing human being. Like, trying to fit in, trying to understand why she has red hair and getting over the fact that red hair isn't ugly but actually quite beautiful, in my opinion. You know, just all of those awkward moments in youth. I feel like Anne of Green Gables really captures that and is so funny throughout. Tag some pilgrims. So I'm gonna tag Emily at Novell Novels. I'm gonna tag Alice of Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, and I'm gonna tag Gemma of Gem of Books. 3 wonderful booktubers that I would also encourage you to check out. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to know if you've read any of these, if you have any middle grade recommendations that you can leave for me down below. I would really appreciate that. And that's it for me. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.